Welcome everyone to June 16th, Tuesday. This is the midweek software strategy session. My name is Stephen Vetterl. You can always call me that if you're mad at me like my mother does, but just call me Steve. Your risk manager, here to talk about the markets. And a nice calm one so far this week, so it's always good to see. So do me a favor if you guys would please in the chat window. Just let me know if you could see my screen. Should show the risk disclosure, which I'm going to run through real quick. Make sure everything's copacetic. Okay, so here we go. Let's kick it off. Trading the foreign exchange markets carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin and utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk that can lead to complete loss of investment funds. That is no joke, folks. So welcome to the Forex markets and international trading craziness. So do know that one of the big things with compliance at this firm is that you're really not sharing like my FX books and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, especially if it's not your FX book. I mean, it's great to talk about performance and all. And there are those in the last couple of weeks and even through the really rocky times of the last couple of months that have had, you know, just some exceptional returns. Just be really cautious about promoting that, because that is the big thing with the regulators. Heck, the regulators globally, but certainly the domestic regulators here in the U.S. That will just set their heads ablaze. So just keep that in mind. So Auvoria Prime does not have any recommended settings. We are not a financial advisory firm. They just license software that users can use however they want and at their own risk and discretion. Some software does come with default settings upon initial setup, with which users have the ability to customize their settings however they want. Auvoria Prime has nothing to do with the customer's broker account. We don't solicit or take investments. We don't recommend any brokers. Again, Auvoria Prime just licensed software and sells amazing education to Days A. Duncan and team and all the other coaches. A little shout out there that you can learn and potentially benefit from. So settings are not company recommended settings. So right now we have the out-of-the-box default settings, which comes when you just boot up the software. And yes, thank you. Welcome to a lot of new members today joining the call. Please let your upline and downline know the call is live if you want anybody else to jump on. We also have our high volatility settings. So I'm going to show both accounts today. One is a demo 3K account. The other account is the live 3K account, which is actually using the volatility settings, trading a different ring of pairs than the demo account. And we'll also show the 25K account on the MyFX book. So as I sound like a broken record, you know, set up a demo first, watch how it works, do link it up to MyFX book. You can always post links and, more importantly, do all kinds of killer analysis I'm about to show. And actually, for those that are new, I am the CMA. There is my email. If you're going to send me an email, two big things that have to happen. You can't send an email to me unless you have a MyFX book link, and then you have a screenshot of the settings. Those are the two things I need, because whether you can explain your question or not completely, I can look at those and see what else is going on to determine if there's any problems, okay? Now, with the overwhelming majority of people that have pinged me up on Telegram and or sent me an email, the theme has always been the same. They haven't seen any of my presentations. They don't follow my trade tracking channel. So I highly suggest, as I'll put the link in here, let me just pop the screen to show you. This is the trade tracking channel. This is the link. I'm actually going to post this myself. And look at that. I learned to do something. Post something in the chat window. There we go. Please spread the word. I put all important stuff in this channel. Market news, changes in currencies, if we're turning the software off or on, if we're running it with different pairs, if we're making changes to the settings in detail, right? We haven't made a lot of changes other than the fact we've entered into the high volatility settings. They've actually done better this week than the generic out of the box default settings. Do keep in mind also too, please, if you're going to ask a question, please do it in the Q&A window. And that would be helpful. So now that I get off my soapbox, let me just go in and show you this. So I put this link on my Telegram channel. This is the first thing I look at every day when I sit down in front of the trading systems before or after I'm going to see clients, or if I'm trading, or whatever the story is. Trading equities, trading futures. I love this dashboard. I held no ownership in FinViz. I don't really essentially have anything other than great things to say about this dashboard, which you can also see on your smartphone. Now, this is the futures portion of global markets, okay? I just like to get an overview by just hovering over each one, seeing what's going on. You could drop it into an hourly chart if you want to take a look at a different time frame. It's just a fantastic dashboard. You know, it's like something you'd see in Bloomberg minus the $2,000 plus costs every month to have a terminal. So this, you know, looking to see volatility, obviously, we've seen some spikes in that recently, obviously. Looking to see what's going on with the dollar, right? So here's the USD on a daily chart. As many of you know, this caused a complete tailspin in some of the movements here. All right, here, actually, hang on a second. I just got that, thank you. Let me share the screen, there we go. So this is, start again, since I was showing the PowerPoint slide. Let me start from the beginning. Thanks for alerting me. So this is the future screen that I look at each morning. Have it bookmarked here. I like to come in and just take a snapshot of what's going on as far as the futures. This is a whole dashboard on an hourly chart. And you can just see everything that's going on in each. Get quotes. I kind of like to just peel through it. And obviously this is from a future standpoint, but just to see if there's any correlations going on with any commodities globally. You know, obviously the importance here of this particular line where you have the 30-year note all the way through the two. These are U.S. Treasury markets and notes. Very, very important, as you guys will often hear me talk about the credit markets. You know, it's all related to the Bund, right? It's all related to treasuries, some of the international bonds for the developed countries. And then at the bottom, these are the futures accounts trade for the currency pairs. Now, probably the only complaint I have is if you go to the Forex section at the tab of FinViz, you only see that it just shows the majors, okay? But again, you can garner a lot of attention by comparing a lot of what's going on, especially if you're trading some of these, you know, and how they would relate to gold and crude oil as well. So the reason I'm sort of showing all this is if you take a look at the Forex calendar, I kind of think that personally in my weekly or daily regimen, I always want to filter out the news events for the top ones, unless you're trading those. And we're beginning to trade some of these as well. So you could certainly have an argument to keep, you know, all of these in. I mean, but I try and get rid of everything but red folders because I don't really care. And just apply the filter, and it shows you. This particular week has been had a lot of news events, and you can see they post with the actual numbers show up and pop. But the important thing to understand here is that when you're looking at any of these news-related events, you can always click on the box and see what's going on. But I mean, starting this morning, you know, Chairman Powell has been testifying. I think it's one of the reasons that if you jump over to the U.S. equity markets, I mean, we're way up in terms of the markets. We were even up even higher than that at this point. But just, I always like to start off, and I know a lot of people don't care on this call about this, or whoever's watching the recording, and I get that. But I really think that just starting off with a general overview of what's going on globally, you take 15, 20 seconds to look at this while you're driving in a car, sitting at a stoplight, if you're on a bus or in a subway, or you know, wherever you are. It's easy to just pull this up and just take a quick peek at what's going on, you know, with just a centralized dashboard. And then you can pour into, I like to look at, and they have an upgraded version of FinViz too, by the way, but I like to take a look at an hourly chart. And then just take a look at dailies. I don't really drill too much down into a 5-minute, obviously. Just want to see, if there's anything crazy going on. You can sort of pick up little ideas of, why has the dollar been going bananas, as you can see back here. This is a chart of the USD on just a daily chart. We've had a lot of movement down. This sent a lot of the dollar-related pairs into a tailspin. It had some drawdowns in some of the accounts. This was a fairly expected move out of, I don't know, somewhat of a sloppy wedge. If you just draw wedge lines right here, we broke out of that and headed down. Now we're sort of consolidating from a very stretched move, in my opinion, kind of like we saw at the epicenter of the pandemic towards the beginning of March, and then we just ripped up. So lots of volatility related to C-19, bailouts, devaluations of dollars with a lot more debt being taken on by this country. I mean, it just always goes on and on. But just taking a look at the Forex calendar here. I kind of argued for having the accounts on this week, even though there was something inside me just because of the volatility of the previous week when I suggested everybody have their live accounts off if you don't understand what you're doing or you're fairly new to this, and just have your demos on. But I don't know. I just, we run a lot of different accounts at this company. Lots of our management runs live accounts. I have just a bazillion bookmarks, as you guys could probably see here, for all kinds of accounts in here. So know that we're always on top of different settings, and that's one of the reasons with this is the live account right here. So the live account is running the volatility settings. Remember, the volatility settings are just very simply, these two are flipped from the default settings that come out of the box. Okay. So if you need any of updates on that, you can go to my trade tracking channel and see the settings, which essentially is just right here, just flipping these two. Do note that between the, and I'm going to have, I just haven't had a chance to get to it, honestly. It's probably been one of the crazier weeks the last 2 weeks, because as you may know, in SoCal, they pretty much opened everything up, and the most of the people have figured out this wearing masks things and shutting down was all just a bunch of BS. So that they've just sort of opened everything up now, and every client's calling me for a meeting. So I've been on the road a lot meeting with clients. But so this is the live account. Again, let's just close down the settings, open up our window. If you're ever wondering, without having an FX book link, you can always move the account tab and see what you started off with, right? And you can always just take this cursor and move it all the way down and see that the account's up about 3%, okay, since we started. And it hasn't been started that long ago. But we'll get a link to my FX book for this. I've fallen short on my duties there. So I'll get that link out. This is the demo account. Now, do note with the demo account, we are running till Friday, okay, on the trail equity, and that the volatility settings are out of the box, okay? The default settings are just the ones out of the box, not the volatility settings. So see the range multiplier 1.35 here. So let's take a look at, so these are the three pairs that we trade: GBP USD, USD CAD, and NZD. I'm thinking of switching, I don't know. I'm thinking of switching to a GBP NZD here. I don't know, for some reason I like that. I haven't really analyzed any of the trades. I just think that would be the ring I'd rather see as far as the third currency for this demo. But the live account, we're running the Old Faithful ring, and on the demo account here, let me show you this as well. So this account's off about $50 since we started. You see the deposit, 3K. Account's now at essentially $29.50. So we're off about $50 in losses. This account's actually pulled out quite nice. So just goes to my constant droning on of the record player that is I am not smarter than the software. If you are in drawdown and you can afford to be in drawdown, which is unfortunate, obviously, but don't send me emails asking, what do I do? I'm in major drawdown, because I'm not going to come out with some magic plan. Just let the software pull you out. If in fact you are really concerned about the drawdown you're in, that tells me that more than likely this is a live account using money that you can ill afford to lose. And I highly advise against that. You want to have, I came across a guy in our downline the other day. Guy's probably got about 20 grand in his bank account, and he wanted to put 10,000 in this account. And I said, oh, no. Start off with 2 or 3 grand. I still think it needs to be at least 3, personally, in order to let the software really cast a wide net of what it's an expert at doing. Do know that we are in final stages of beta test for a couple other pieces of software that will be released. I cannot give any more details other than it looks quite promising. So we'll just let the developers and everybody else also announce that. But stay tuned certainly for that, as we posted on the Telegram channel. It's coming soon. So thoughts about anything else I want to mention? Let's take a look actually at jump back to the live account. I want to show the currency here that's really shot a lot of accounts in the foot. And so this is just get this out of the way. Sniff VPS isn't the easiest to use. You gotta use the arrow here. Yeah, whatever. So this is the movement up that really terrorized a lot of live accounts, so to speak, here. Typically when you have a really strained move, and this is just a daily chart on the Euro JPY, you'll usually get very close. And up here we were darn near like 3 standard deviations, which is a really stretched move. And I know this wasn't, this whole move was painful for some, but it just goes to show you that even a crazy move like this will have a tendency to revert back to the mean, meaning that it's just like a stretched rubber band. We got really outside and really stretched and up near a whole bunch of other confluence, which is just a fancy way of saying other areas of support, resistance, and volume, and all kinds of clusters of stuff, for lack of wanting to do a deeper dive. But we came back in, and now essentially we're building, I don't know, what looks to be some sort of tighter range, sort of building a base, and we could trend further and continue to build a base. If that in fact's the case, I feel a lot more confident if we continue in sort of this tight range build, if you will, of letting the software run with this pair. And again, if you take a look at longer term accounts, which I don't really have a lot of time to peel through those right now, but just have faith in the fact that this has been a profitable pair over the last year in different versions of the software. It has done pretty well. And in some cases, this pair has put out more profit than the other two by a factor of almost 1 to 2-fold. It's just that this has just been a piece of crap the last couple of months. So, because every time you start trying to fiddle with a ring that's been proven over the long term, certainly doesn't seem like that recently, right? It's going to come out and do well, or it's going to get back into a particular range where the software can trade instead of this breakout move. And we were essentially one time framing up, which is just a fancy way of saying we were opening higher and finishing higher throughout a number of days straight, with the exception of this doji candle here, which is sort of an indecision type day. So that's just a little bit of a review. I normally don't get into too much individual technical analysis on a pair, but this thing has just terrorized a lot of accounts. And I think it's important to have focus on the long term. Keep the conservative settings, the volatility settings going, just flipping essentially out. All right. So do me a favor and post some questions if you would, please. Um, Hi, Steve. Can you quickly explain again the must hedge setting and how the trend level number applies? So, Anthony, have you do you subscribe to my trade tracking channel, Anthony? You could pop just a yes or no in there because I have that explained in detail in that channel. So if you're not subscribed to, there's a whole explanation on those two new settings, the deep dive. The red folder news affect all pairs, although not related. For example, would a JPY red folder event actually? Absolutely. So this is actually a good question. It's basically just talking about the effects or the correlations of the news story to one pair. So if anything comes out positive or negative, albeit it's been mostly negative with the Bank of Japan. That's why the country's been circling his reign for 20 years. But and people always ask me why is that? It's because they continue to carry bad debt on their books and they will not write it off. So their mandate is much different, and quite frankly, writing off bad debt is a much more comprehensive way to clean up your money supply and your monetary system instead of continuing to carry that on your books. So as I digress, the JPY, anything that's related to news that comes out against that currency country, related to anything with their economy, can affect the entire world. Why? Because it's kind of like waving a jump rope. Okay, so if you wave it a little bit, it's obviously waving a lot, but essentially by the time you get to the end of the jump rope, it's not as much of an effect, right? But it still is a little bit of a vibration, if you will. I mean, that's kind of how the currency markets can act. The problem is anything related to any kind of country's just the slightest hint or whiff of more debt is essentially just a devaluing of the currency type of thing, right? So if a country's going to take on more debt, it makes your currency look more like junk, right? So as I always tell people, it's like, well, is the U.S. dollar better and globally? And I mean, it can be. I mean, but the problem is that we're in a period of time where central banks just want to take on debt and continue printing presses so that the capitalism and the rise of all markets can continue. And I mean, that's not a good thing long term. But what a lot of people get completely disassociated with is that, and this is something I actually have to credit my old boss, Ken Fisher, with teaching me, is that the level of debt a country has really no determinant on the stock market. And a lot of people will completely disagree with that. And it's true. So, I mean, you can actually Google that. But it still doesn't make a soft landing, if you will, for a currency if a country comes out and wants to take on more debt. So anything related to taking on more debt is typically bad for that country's currency. Right now, a lot of countries, especially the majors, all got a lot of debt. So it's really the lesser of all evils right now. Right now, that's the U.S. dollar. So hopefully that answers your question in a long and drawn out fashion. So let me just get rid of these questions. Let's ask some new ones. Okay, so the link to the trade tracking channel is posted in the chat window, which is separate than the Q&A channel window. Can you please explain sell and buy trend when it occurs? I have read Telegram but could not understood. I am clear with hedge setting. Only need to understand how, but and sell trend logic. Dual settings is clear. Honestly, Sub, I'm not sure how good your English is. If you want to send me that in an email, I can send it to you. I don't know that the deep dive to answer your question is going to help you understand the software any better. Just know that the software is a martingale system, so it is not necessarily a trend following software. We do have other softwares in in the pipeline that will be different than the martingale stuff. Okay. One of them is a trend channel. I don't know where it is in the beta, so don't ask that question because I'm not sure. Next question is, how do we mitigate risk in a situation where it's trending one way? Do we just remove the stop loss and hope it reverses? I ask because in Euro US dollar, it hit my stop loss and I lost over 20% on my live account. Okay. So the first question is always the same with me, Tony, right? It's the broken record. One, have you run a demo? Two, is the demo running the 3-pair ring that our demo is? Okay. And then are you using the volatility settings or are you using the regular out of the box default settings? So those are the first questions. And if it's running a live account, have you run a demo account first? Okay. So that's always what comes from me as the risk manager here. It's my job to make sure, for the lack of a better term, I pound your heads into running a demo account first before you get into running a live. I don't have the time, Steve. I just want to run a live. You can run them simultaneously, but just make sure you understand what's going on. You know, a lot of people seem to think that Einstein and Alexander, you know, one automatically executes trades for the other is manual, is a set it and forget it software. It isn't. You know, you have to monitor this stuff. You've got to listen to the calls. Whether you like listen to my voice or not, it's going to help you with the risk management in your accounts. That's essentially what, you know, Sal and the management team and all the directors have put me in place to do. So to answer the last part of the question, in a situation where it's trending one way, do we just remove the stop loss? Unless, Tony, you can tell me that you understand a lot about how the software operates and that you're comfortable removing the stop loss and you can handle a deeper drawdown, and in order to cast a wider net, right, of the software being able to pull itself out, that's really the key. If the answer to that's yes, maybe you would consider removing a stop loss and letting it play it out. Let it play out. Okay, so for this next question, it is best answered on Investopedia. Here it is. One of the big awards I won was with these guys. Top 100 financial advisors. All right. So whenever I talk to clients, I always want them, if they understand no other financial metrics, that they understand standard deviation. Why? Because essentially it's a statistical measure that just shows the dispersion relative to an index, okay? Or the variance, if you will, okay? So when you apply it to the annual rate of return of an investment, it sheds light on not only the volatility of the investment and essentially greater the standard deviation of like securities, greater the variance between each price and the mean. So essentially shows a larger price range. So it gives an example, and this is getting a bit deep here, but bottom line is that standard deviation, and this is the only thing that matters, is the key takeaways here, okay? So you can see how it's calculated. Maybe a lot of don't care, but it just measures the dispersion of a data set relative to its mean, essentially a level of risk. So volatile stocks have a high standard deviation, right? While the deviation of a stable blue chip stock is usually rather low, or something that's like a value stock, right? So as a downside is, you can see the key takeaway number 3, it calculates all uncertainty as risk, even when it's in the investor's favor, such as above average. So to sort of dumb all that down, you want to take the standard deviation of the S&P and compare it to whatever your equity fund is or your equity portfolio. If your equity portfolio is small cap, you wouldn't use the S&P 500 as your benchmark. You'd use something different, maybe the Russell 2000 index, right? So one thing I always try to have clients do is understand standard deviation, understand what the performance is. Basically, standard deviation is how good is your performance as a measure of risk against the benchmark. It depends on what the benchmark is, right? And outside of that, I always try to have them look at the S&P 500. That's why I always show them. Notice I never show you guys the Dow 30, right? Because it's price weighted and not capitalization weighted. So if a big stock like Microsoft gets clobbered, I mean, just crushed, right? Or Apple, it's going to have an effect on the Dow's movements up or down. Whereas they're capitalization weighted in the S&P 500, you're going to get a better representation, at least of what the big cap blue chip stocks in all sectors of the market in the U.S. are actually doing. So that was a long, drawn-out answer to your question, but I think that's important because a lot of you guys are probably catching the theme with me here as I always start bringing it back to the big macro picture, right? Just understanding the most important concepts. So this is what I teach all of my clients, teach them to understand what kind of benchmark want to select and measure your account's performance against. Is it the S&P 500, right? And then understand, how correlations work, which is for another time. So let me just check one thing here. Okay, so just open this window up. So the link to my, because I seem to get this question a lot. So I posted the link to my Telegram channel in here. And actually, before I forgot, let's show you the 25K account. So this is being run as the conservative account. We're running this on conservative settings. This account actually hasn't done that bad this week. I don't know if you guys can see the screen here. Just double check I'm sharing the right screen. There we go. So this is the performance this week. A little more than 0.5%. Hasn't really done crap for the month. It's actually dug itself out of a hole again, right? Well, I don't want to step in front of the software. I'm not smarter than it. But again, I always look to, obviously when you guys see me poking around in this thing, I'm always showing the same stuff, right? I want to see the win rates, right? I want to see the trade win rates, okay? Running in, mid to high 60s typically, which is actually really good, especially if you have low risk, which is the key, right? If you have low risk and you have win rates that are in the 51% or up, right? You have just a much better chance of making money if you keep your risk tight. So summary here, you can see that, and this isn't really any great amount of time. We barely had 1,000 trades executed in this account. And you can see that the win rates have been, one thing I have noticed recently is the win rates have been double what the, versus win versus loss. And if you take a look at just total trades here, 66% on both. So it's been running equal and very consistent as far as trades executed on both long and the short side here. But then I want to take a look at the summary also of, what's going on. And you can see that, obviously we've taken a beating in the profit side of Euro JPY, and Euro US dollar has been the most profitable right here. So you can always go in and see open trades at the bottom. You can see we're taking a little bit of a beating here. But the account itself, even through all the bananasness of what's been going on through this pandemic and a whole mess of other international mess, yeah, we've managed to pull off some pretty darn good performance numbers relative to the brutality that we've seen in the marketplace. So I know a lot of this is confusing for a lot of people, and I apologize for that. But honestly, I'm kind of like throwing you guys into the deep end of the pool, which coincidentally is actually how my dad taught me to swim. He's like, "Yeah, just get in the pool." And so it's kind of one of those things where you just want to go and take a look at the numbers. You don't really need to dissect a lot of this stuff, but I can actually tell a ton from this, much more than FX Blue, because you just don't get this deeper dive like this. I could tell a ton from this just by looking to see what's going on. How's the drawdowns been, if any? what is the trade execution stuff looking like? The great thing about this software is, yes, you're in drawdown on some of this stuff and it can be kind of painful, but it's like the software just, it just won't give up, right? And then a lot of that is sort of martingale based, where it takes deeper trades, and you guys can see just by the lot sizes how, some of them are deeper, some of them deeper levels than others. Obviously, I'm not going to get too much into that, but the key thing is just make sure you hook one of your accounts up to these things, because there's just a ton of stuff that can be weaned from this. And relative to, that's pretty much everything I want to say about these. I got to get the FXs done for this. It's my first and major task for this week. All right. I think that's everything I want to cover. Felicia, can you post your email? I want to send you my results for this week. I'm so amazed. Okay. We love that. Let me pop the kids. I'm getting ready to close this down. So if you guys want to take the email address down, here is the PowerPoint. It's just svetteral@AuvoriaPrime.com. So if you just joined the call and you're late, if you guys want to send me an email, just make sure you give me the link to your my FX book, because if you just send me a screen settings without a link to my FX book, I may not answer the email, right? So, give me that too, and any questions you guys have related to it. I would encourage anybody that has those two things to go on to the Facebook page, which has a number of linked streams to Telegram, and go on to the Auvoria Prime results pages in Facebook and or Telegram, and post your results. I think a lot of people have struggled, and unfortunately the vast majority that have struggled, a lot of them didn't have the right settings. A lot of them didn't have the patience to sort of stand through it. And a lot of them may want to get back on the horse, which I encourage. I can tell you, for everybody out there that may have had a tough couple of weeks, one, welcome to Forex, and two, that good times will be had again. It just may take some time. So I would say stick with it, and please do not view this as, I need this software to pay my monthly subscription. The answer to that is to go out and find 3 people. Period. Plain and simple. That's everything I wanted to cover. Let me just jump back to the screen. Yeah, I think that's everything. Tejas, by the way, I love the name. Not a question, but I'm running a 1K demo account, and I'm at a 9% profit in 3 weeks already. So I'll be going live using high volatility, so basically 3% profit per week. Do yourself a favor, get another week or two out of that demo before you go live. It's not really a long test period, okay? And maybe you've got the settings dialed in, so that's good to see. All right, guys, today, again, is the 16th of June. Let your hearts not be troubled. The Forex markets eventually will pay us. It may just take some time. So this is Steve Vetteral saying, everybody, have a great week. And if you got any questions, send me an email. Be well.